chance to spend about 10 minutes to talk to you about my experience and my passion for education didn't always exist. I got dragged to it, I got embarrassed into it, and ultimately got inspired. A successful workforce development effort for Ohio must, to quote The Sound of Music, start at the very beginning. It's not only a very good place to start, it's a must. If we as business leaders can be more involved in and focus on helping more Ohio kids successfully graduate high school, it will have a huge payoff and benefit for Ohio and Ohio's future workforce success. Related to this, I'd like to share a few stories that highlight why this early stage K through 12 investment in workforce development is imperative. In the fall of 2002, my father, Tom Sullivan, was stepping down as CEO of RPM after a successful career that saw him leave the United States Navy to join his father's $2 million roof coatings company in 1961 and retire 41 years later at the top of a $2 billion business. To honor his success and recognize his retirement, my brothers, sisters, and I, and many RPM business partners came together to raise money focused towards education, a lifelong passion of my parents. Our initial idea was to raise $1 million to endow a scholarship at my father Tom's alma mater, Miami University. I approached Albert Ratner, an RPM board member and vice chairman of Forest City Enterprises, to gain his support for this program and explained to him our idea. His rather sarcastic response, "Well, isn't that nice?" Knowing Albert, a mentor to me for many years, I said, "Okay, Albert, what's wrong?" His observation, "A scholarship at my university would be great, but if you really want to make a difference in the lives of young people and in our community, you'll figure out how to get more kids successfully through high school." Albert provided me information on the vast amounts of money for higher education that was available to poverty-level minority kids who successfully graduated from high school. More importantly, he also provided me statistical data from the 2000 census, which highlighted a handful of key societal determinants of poverty. Of these, the single most identifiable determining factor of the likelihood of future success or future poverty, regardless of gender, race, or ethnicity, was an individual successfully graduating high school. In response to this challenge, in partnership with the Cleveland Foundation, we established the Sullivan Scholars Program, in essence a privately funded voucher program to provide a full-ride scholarship to students from families in poverty who had demonstrated a successful K-8 school performance. Today, we endow 50 scholarships per year across a dozen different high schools in northeastern Ohio and have graduated 150 students, proudly meeting the Albert Ratner challenge of successfully getting more kids through high school. Why does this matter for workforce development? Cleveland's Fund for Economic Future survey results from this past spring revealed 93% of surveyed employers face shortages in hiring, citing, quote, "applicant pool does not meet their basic hiring requirements." Overall survey results identified low literacy and low numeracy skills as a principal reason for not being able to find qualified employees. The Program for International Assessment of Adult Competencies, an international organization that scores adult readiness for employment, recently noted that in Cuyahoga County, Ohio, 54% of adults were not at proficiency levels of literacy and 64% were not at proficiency levels of basic numeracy. Where did these workforce readiness issues start? The Ohio statewide average for fifth grade math proficiency today is 48%. Less than half of Ohio fifth graders perform below grade level. Right here in our state capital, Columbus City school students in third grade scored at 23% in reading proficiency versus a statewide average of 51.9%. Following the establishment of the Sullivan Scholars Program and recognizing my passion for education, Randy McShepard, RPM's Vice President of Public Affairs and Chief Financial Officer, challenged me to get involved in the Cleveland Municipal School District. My excuse to Randy at the time was that the problems at the Cleveland Municipal School District were so large that I could not make a difference, and I certainly didn't have the time to get involved. Randy then asked me if I'd ever heard the Starfish Story, and I said no. So he told it to me. There's a huge storm on the ocean, and the next day the tide's out, there's no wind, it's 100 degrees, and there's thousands of starfish baking and dying on the shore. And there's a little girl in the distance, and she's moving towards a pier, and an old man's standing on the pier, and he sees this girl bending down and standing up, and as she gets closer, he sees she's throwing starfish back into the ocean. When she gets to the pier, the old man says to her, "What are you doing?" And with great enthusiasm, she says, "I'm saving the starfish." And the old man looks at the thousands of starfish that are baking and dying on the shore and says, "You can't possibly make a difference." She picks up another one, throws it into the ocean, and says, "I made a difference to that one, didn't I?" I realized I had just received the politest slapdown I'd ever gotten in my life, and thus was shamed and inspired to get engaged to try and make a difference at the city schools in Cleveland. As a member of the board of the Cleveland Foundation and also a member of the Greater Cleveland Partnership Executive Committee, I was aware that both of these organizations regularly committed hundreds of thousands of dollars per year to the Cleveland school system, usually from the top down to areas that were not well understood, or in support of various consultants who were doing work on behalf of the Cleveland Municipal School District. This investment seemed to make little difference in performance. This was in the mid-2000s. At that time, slightly less than 50% of the incoming freshmen to the Cleveland City schools actually graduated high school. This was shocking to me. So we worked with the Cleveland Municipal School District, Mayor Frank Jackson, representatives of the business community, the Cleveland Clinic, University Hospitals, and the Cleveland Teachers Union to establish the governance structure, practices, and curriculum for a new school in the city of Cleveland, the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine. I recall talking to Joanne DeMarco, then president of the Cleveland Teachers Union, and in the first year of the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine, noting that with 100 kids, 70 of which were girls and 30 of which were boys, from my typical white, well-to-do male perspective, what a great school this would be for boys given the 2.5-to-1 ratio. Joanne DeMarco replied to me, quote, "Now you are seeing the true crisis in urban education," and pointed out then in 2004 that less than 35% of the incoming African-American freshman boys in the Cleveland City schools actually graduated from high school. The early success of the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine sets the stage for later establishing a collection of choice schools within the CMSD. Following this, with the leadership of Mayor Frank Jackson, the commitment of our state legislature, a lot of good work from people like Lisa Gray, we were able to establish the Cleveland Plan, which allowed for significant flexibility around school performance, teacher pay plans, and other items. 15 years later, the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine has been and remains the highest performing high school in Cleveland City schools and has been recognized by the U.S. News and World Report as a 5-time national silver medal school and continues to generate a 98% graduation rate. The Cleveland Municipal School District, in the meantime, generated a steady improvement from the below 50% rate in the early 2000s to a freshman to senior year graduation rate for the year ended in the spring of 2019 of 80.1%. In the early years of RPM, my grandfather was famous for his one-hand business plan. With early success, he was encouraged by a number of business associates to invest in a big research center or to hire new people to establish a big marketing department. His view at the time was that these were nice to haves, but not until RPM established excellence in the elements of the one-hand business plan: sell it, make it, ship it, bill it, collect it. Would we earn the right to spend money or time on these other things. I was reminded of this in thinking about the state of public education in Ohio today. The very legislature that was courageously helping us and was crucial in the success of the establishment of the Cleveland Municipal School District Transition Plan today seems to be tied up in education legislation on fighting culture wars. How about a one-hand business plan for education where we teach our kids how to read, write, and do basic math at grade level before we move on to other things? Why step into this briar patch of controversy? Here are a few more statistics from the Ohio Education Report Card for 2021 that I recited earlier. In Ohio statewide fifth grade math proficiency ratings, last year the Youngstown Public Schools students scored 2.9%. In East Cleveland Public Schools, students scored 1.8%. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to share these statistics and stories with you. I do so with the hope that, like Albert Ratner's targeted cynical comment or Randy McShepard's reciting the Starfish Story, that you'll be encouraged to get actively involved in a hands-on and, if necessary, one school at a time granular way. As these examples demonstrate the difference that you can make, and I know that many of you are. But if we don't get it right at the very beginning, the cost of workforce development will continue to become significantly higher and the effectiveness significantly lower. On the other hand, if we, as leaders of the business community, can both affect positive change in K-12 education by our attention and involvement and demand of our elected representatives that we first and foremost focus on the critical basics driving high levels of literacy and numeracy for Ohio students, we will continue to build on the incredible momentum that we heard about today. We'll continue to establish our state as a great place to live and work, and we'll be developing the homegrown talent that is ready to successfully tackle the workforce challenges of today and tomorrow. Thank you.